Just turn it up. Turn it up. No, I mean turn it up higher. There you go. There you go.
Alright. Good morning.
Good morning.
I wasn't expecting to be that loud. First, I want to dismiss the children to their cell groups. And before y'all go, I want to ask Jocelyn to bless them as they go into their cell groups. Good there.
Dear Lord, there's a word for us, there's a word for them, Lord, and I pray that they learn more about you tonight. I pray that you put something special in their hearts, Lord, and I pray that Amanda, she has worked really hard with this program, Lord, and I know she's got something awesome for them today. We thank you and we glorify you, and we thank you for this new generation that's going to be rising up. In Jesus' name I pray.
Amen.
I've got one announcement for the people going to Brazil. Pastor asked me to ask y'all tomorrow at 6 p.m. start a fast until the day before you leave. Pick whatever you pick to fast from, post it on the Brazil site so he'll know what you're fasting from. Starting tomorrow at 6 p.m. Now from there, let's get started.
Man.
I will say that when he asked me Wednesday to go and do this, it's an honor. It's an honor for him to trust somebody to stand in his place. So I thank Apostle for allowing me to stand under his cover right here. And that was an honor. And so I started seeking God, what do you want me to talk about this morning? And I can tell you that God waits to the last minute usually. And I had ideas, but I didn't know exactly, but he confirmed it today. We played a song, with that last song we sang, it said, draw me close. And then it says, lead me. That song, that whole song talks about what was been burning in my heart and what we're going to talk about today. It was a confirmation that I was hearing him correctly. Because at first I thought, is this just me or is it really him talking? But it really is. This particular week, I got to take JC to Houston for the airport, and Joseph rode with me. On the way back, we were talking, and some of what we're going to talk about today has to do with what we talked about that day, because it affects every one of us. I have a question for you to start with. How much hunger and desire do you really want him? When you sing that song that says, draw me close, how truly do you really mean what you're saying? Draw me close to you. Do you really mean it? That's what we're going to talk about today. There's several things that relates to. So I'm going to tell you a story to start with, to lay the foundation of where we're going. I want you to imagine this neighborhood that, and I've done it before, have y'all not, when you go into other places and y'all get into this really nice, rich neighborhood, you drive around and you look at the houses and you wonder how the house looks in the inside? Well, today we're going to use the house as an example. You go through and you see this beautiful house. It's so beautiful. The landscaping doesn't look like there's a grass out of line or a leaf exactly where it needs to be. It has got the circle drive and the nice pillars, and it just looks like it is a beautiful house. And you think, what's it going to have on the inside? The grounds look perfect. But when you walk in, the inside of the house, is it going to amaze you like the outside? To where it is just perfectly groomed, to where it's put together in every area? Or when you walk in, are you going to be disappointed and go, oh, is this all it is on the inside? The outside looks pretty. The inside may or may not look pretty. When you walk in, you may walk in and see the marble floor shining where you can see your reflection of yourself in the floors. You may be able to walk around and not see one bit of dust anywhere in the house, and it'd be perfect. But there are those that appearance on the outside, but the way they live on the inside is nothing compared to the way they outside. You walk in, and I know this because I've been to a house that had an estate sale. And on the outside, I always wondered what it looked like on the inside. And when I found out they were having a sale and we could actually walk through the house, I was excited. But when I went in, I was so disappointed. I could not believe how terribly bad condition it was on the inside. How it was nothing like it you thought it would be because of the outside. Even the way it was laid out, it was just very disappointing. When we look at that's in a physical life. But when we look at ourselves, when we accepted Christ as our Savior, did we not ask Him to come in and live in us?
Amen.
So if we asked Him to come in and live in us, doesn't that make us His house? So if we are His house, how does our house look on the inside? Do we every room that He has free to roam? Or is there just one room that you've set aside and you've seen on television and you may know people? You walk in that room, there's plastic on the furniture and it's all kinds of things because it's perfect. And this is Jesus' room. This is the place the guests get to come when they come in. Do we have that in our house? Do we have that in our spiritual life? That every area in our house, does He have free to roam, or do we have it set aside for one little room for Him, to only Him? Jesus, you're only allowed in this room. I'm sorry, I know you want to come, but you have to stay in this room. If you really mean what you're saying, draw me close, then you don't have just one room. In Revelations chapter it's verse 20. 3:20, it says knock. He's knocking at the door. Now there are those that have not accepted Christ, and He's knocking at the door. Their whole entire house is going to be a mess. But He's sitting there knocking. All He wants them to do is open the door. But for us, how many of us, we let Him in, but we've sort of moved Him out? And now He's standing at the door knocking because He wants back in. Are you ashamed to let Him in? Are you ashamed to let Him come in and take over? Are you ashamed because some of the mess you made because you kicked Him out? And you don't want to let Him in. Are you going to hide and pretend like you're not at home? Because I know we've all done that. Somebody comes knocking on the door and we pretend like we're not at home because we don't want to deal with them. Have we not? Be honest. Well, how are we in our spiritual life with Jesus? Are we the same way? When He gets into that, when we're sitting there and He's knocking, and He's not going to walk away because He has a purpose for us. You accepted Him as your Savior. You said, come live with me. He's not going to leave. Just because you want Him to, He's standing there at that door knocking. And as He's knocking, how are you reacting? I know a lot of us sometimes when they're knocking, when we see who it is, we're all of a sudden rushing, trying to clean up things and move around things before we open the door. Do we not?
Yes.
Okay? Do we need to do that for Jesus? See, the great thing about Jesus is that He loves us. And He loves the sinner and the unsaved just like He loves us. Is what we are supposed to stand and understand, that we are sons and daughters of Christ. We are brothers and sisters and joint heirs to Christ. We are sons and daughters of God. We have an identity in Him that we need to walk in. When you look in the mirror, and I'm going to clear this up. before we even get started, I was listening to a song this morning that I didn't even know was on my phone. It's funny how God does things. I downloaded an album and this song was on there. And it talked about mirrors. When we look in the mirror, what do we see when we look in the mirror? Do we see all of our mess that we are, or do we see who God sees us? Do we see the son, the daughter, the brother, the sister, the teacher, the one that's going to save souls? Do we see that conqueror of hell when we look in the mirror, or do we see all of our mess? When we look in the mirror, that is actually a direct representation of our house, our spiritual house. Because if we can't see ourselves as who we are in Him, then our house is probably a mess. There's probably some area of our life that we do not want Him in, that we try to keep Him sectioned off into a different part of the house. Now, I've seen houses from the outside that looked terrible, and I had no desire to go in. But when I walked in that house, it was like, wow, the outside does nothing for this. The outside shows that this house isn't nowhere near as big as it really is. I've been told about our house. It looks like an old broken down farmhouse. But there's a lot more room in our house than people think. It's a big house compared to what it looks like. But we have houses that are that way. It goes to show that it doesn't matter what the outside really looks like. It's what's on the inside matters. Is it being kept together? Now, when we look in the mirror, we need to be a true reflection of God. That is true. But we can look through all the Word, the Bible. There was some that God blessed that had. They were up in high areas of government. They were in high areas in esteem of people around them. But there was others that God used that were low and meek. They didn't have all that attached to them, but yet they were just as powerful in God as those that were in the high esteem, like Joseph in there that was able to change the world. But look at the prophets that had to walk around and eat locusts and drink milk and honey out of the river. They were just as powerful in God. Their house on the outside may not have looked pristine, but the inside was what mattered. Jesus, God, had every reign upon their whole house. We need to be like that. But if you're scared that He's going to knock on that door and you're going to let Him in and He's going to see the mess and turn around and walk away, He's not going to. See, the great thing is when He walks in, He knows there's a mess. He already knows. And when He walks in, He wants to clean it up. What do you say when you ask Him in your heart? Come, make me clean. Do you think that's instant? It's not instant. When you're cleaning a bathtub and you have to spray stuff on, do you think it's going to wipe off instant? You have to let it set for a moment to soak in. Well, our lives are the same way. We may have a mess. We may have things that we're ashamed of the world doesn't know. Because behind that door, the world doesn't know what's going on in that house unless you let them in. So it's hidden to the world. It's not hidden to God, and He's wanting in to clean up the mess. The great thing is when He comes in and He starts cleaning up the mess, things start popping up. There's storms, there's all kinds of things that hit. Do you know that storms are good? There's different reasons for storms, but they're good. Some of the storms we go through is because they're of our own making. Some of them are there because they're to teach us something. Some of them are there because He knows that you're going to be like Job and you're going to stand firm with Him. And He needs other people to see that because He's trying to reach somebody else.
Amen.
When we go through that storm, though, we got to keep our focus on Him. Our focus has to be on Him. Psalms 19, there's a few verses in Psalms 19 that talks about He is the foot, the light of our path. He directs our path to good, to righteousness. And we need to let Him go. Psalms 19 is a long chapter, but it talks several times about Him being the light of our footsteps, the direction of our path, and He gives us direction. But if you never open that door, He cannot give you directions. A good way to look at it, and this is what I heard on the way to Houston, and I never had thought about that, about God being a spiritual GPS. I had not thought about that. I really hadn't. But the truth is, and Joseph will understand when I say this because he was there, GPS puts you on a direction. There is a destination for you to go at. Jesus has a destination for each one of us. It says, Ephesians 2:10. Somebody look at that. I want you to look it up. You want to bring it on the screen, Ephesians 2:10. While she's bringing it up, you got this certain destination, and the word here is going to tell us that He has a destination for us. We're going to read it. Is it up? It says, behold, that's Revelations 3:20. But anyway, it says, we stand at the door. If any man here open the door. Ephesians 2:10 says, for we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God hath before ordained we should walk in them. But it says He before ordained. That means He's already got a destination for you. That means that He's already decided what He wants and where He wants you to be. So He's already then initiated His spiritual GPS in our lives. It's our choice to follow it. In Houston, we chose not to follow GPS because it was trying to send me on a toll road. In the physical, I didn't want to go through a toll road. So we kept going around it. To go around it. And every intersection, please make a U-turn. Please make it. It was trying to get me back to that same thing. To get to that destination. I take it that happened to y'all too?
Yeah. I told them to turn it off because I wasn't listening to it.
But He does send us in a path. For us, in the physical, we didn't want to go down that toll road. But see, in the spiritual walk, if He's telling you to go that way, we may not want to go that way, and we're going to try to go around it. That way was the straight and easy way. It was even the straight and easy way for us. We just didn't want to go. So we went around, and it kept on.
Come on.
But finally, it got us to where we were supposed to be. It happened to us twice. It tried to make us go on that toll road twice, on the way there and on the way back. But in our spiritual life, how many times do we come up to a spot and we're heading in a direction that God's sending us and we're going, oh, no, I don't want that. And we turn and we go a different direction, and He's keep trying to get us back. He wants us to really go on that easy path. But if you choose to go the hard path, when we went that hard path, it was raining hard. There was times that we were in areas that the water, I couldn't see out the windshield because the water was blowing over our windshield. I should not have gone that way. Had I gone the other way, I would not have. But that goes back to storms too.
Come on.
We create some of our storms.
Yeah.
But He still has a destination on the other end of that storm.
That's right.
Are we going to keep our eyes on Jesus? Peter had his eyes on Jesus, and he stepped out of the boat and he started walking. And as long as he had his eyes on Jesus, he was walking on water. How many of us are going to walk on water, or are we going to turn and look at the things around us and let that distract us so that we start sinking? Because see, as we create these storms, and or any of the storms that we're put in, if we worry about more of the storm, then our house is never going to get clean. If we worry about the storm and the things that are going around, our house will never get clean, because we will not have our focus where it needs to be. And believe me, He's going to do what He needs to do to get you to that destination. It doesn't